Welcome to an episode of The Diplomats, a special episode as we continue to talk about Umble the Heaps and me, Ed Sullivan, Go Horns Go, DBNI Tournament, Invitational Tournament 2021, where they take the top ranked 28 players from the 2020 diplomacy season. I was higher seeded than Umble the Heap, which means I'm a better player. But Umble the Heap is joining me on the podcast today to talk about his second game where he board topped the first. This is his second game. It'll be released after the DBNI finals, and we'll find out if Umble the Heap made those finals throughout the podcast. Our podcast today is brought to you by the indispensable, unparalleled, great, early in the morning for me, diplomacybriefing.com. Umble, welcome and talk to us about Diplomacy Briefing.
Thank you. Yes, Diplomacy Briefing is the way to stay updated on everything that's happening in the diplomacy hobby. It's free. It's a weekly email, gets you updates on all the tournaments. There's always a strategy article. Basically, anything new that's happening in the hobby that is noteworthy will be featured in the briefing. And so just go to diplomacybriefing.com and sign up and be a part of everything that's happening.
Fantastic. And for those of you wondering, Village Idiot has written a series of articles on diplomacybriefing.com about essentially what it takes to be a great player. And I feel somewhat insulted and somewhat complimented that I'm not mentioned in any way.
Actually, there was a last minute edit that was made yesterday. You should go over and check out the part 4 because there was a name added to it that you might be surprised by.
I would be surprised if he put my name down, but I will be curious to see what he has to say.
It is down.
Player. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
there was a change that he wanted to add to there, and you made it in.
Okay. And let the record show I did not lobby because the Irish in me wants to grumble more than they want any recognition. But so just to backtrack. You had played game 1 where you board topped with 16 centers. You had 160 points, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You were almost certainly, barring an absolute series of mathematical oddities from making, you would make the top 7. It was mostly a question of what seed you would be. Is that fair to say as you entered round 2?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You got to bid, and I think you said on the first episode that you put all your points that you had available to bid in the first game to get England, and now I'm thinking you have very few points left.
Yeah, I have basically nothing. Like the highest bid I can possibly give is 6 points, and of course, this is out of a pool of 200. So the highest bid I can do is 6 points for a power. And so my highest bid was Turkey, and my reasoning for it was this. Now I know Turkey's been targeted a lot in the virtual format, and especially in the DBNI, had been eliminated multiple times. But my thought was, if I'm sitting on 160, maybe if I can combine the diplomacy leverage of I'm not really playing for a board top with the defensive ability that Turkey has, that'll help me get a good survival, because that was really my goal. I wanted to get survival, get some more points, and just help secure my 3rd place finish, because 2 solos had already happened. So most likely the best I was going to get was 3rd. So I wanted to try to not get eliminated, but kind of secure that.
Okay. And so you ended up getting Turkey, which did, of the few points that you had remaining, I think a total of 17 or 23 maybe. Where did you put most of your bid on? Like, what country would you have preferred the most?
Well, Turkey. For this particular game with what I had, Turkey. I mean, I like playing in the West, but I didn't have any confidence that I was going to make it over there. So I put 6. I put 6, which was the most I could put with allocating out to all the other countries. I put 6 points on Turkey.
All right.
Got it.
And so that's my first question, which is, I thought this was a very dangerous strategy, given not that you wouldn't make the DBNI top board, but just in general, the meta of the game, and certainly virtual face to face, is anti-Turk in the beginning.
Mhm.
Were you concerned about that at all? I think I would have been fearful.
No, I wasn't because, like I mentioned, I had a really good diplomatic argument where I could say, look, I have 160 points. I'm already going to make it into the finals. Let me help you top the board. Let me be a help to you. And and so when you're making that pitch to three different powers that all want to top the board, and also, they also have to say, is what is better, a better use of their time, trying to dig me out and kill me, or trusting me to help them make the top board? Because it takes a lot of coordinated effort to kill Turkey. And so all I really need is one of them to believe that pitch, which, by the way, was a truthful pitch. I wasn't really playing for a board top, which this game will show. And so, no, I personally liked the strategy, and I felt pretty confident going in that it would work with someone.
When I see Umble the Heap number sign 7798 next to Turkey, it almost resurrects the PTSD
Yeah,
because we met when you were playing Turkey,
right.
and let's just say we're friendly with each other now, but in those days it was contentious. So, pardon me if I lapsed into some bizarre behavior here.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, you were fortunate with your neighbors because I think you had a good pitch to make to every one of them.
Mhm.
Turkey's most important relationship, I would think, would be in the East, and you have Conrad Woodring, who had board topped himself, but it was a low board top, 100 points as England. He's playing Russia, but he clearly wants a survival.
Right.
Any survival probably gets him through to the next round, and would have if he made a survival, as it turns out. You have Brad Blitzstein as Austria, who you played with in game one, who I believe ended up with, he needs a board top probably, or
Yeah.
a number of points. And then you have John Anderson, who was a high seed, but had flamed out in game one at 0. So
Mhm.
he needs a strong board top to have a chance.
Right. And then the other dynamic there too is both England and France, which is Tanya and Andre. This was their first game, so they still had another game to play. And Germany was a substitute, so he's kind of in the same boat John is in Italy. They need to get a board top if they're going to make the final board. So everybody has a reason to play, really, except for me. So that gives you a lot of diplomacy, leverage and ability to influence the board. And I had good relations with Andre. I'd played him before in another game, and we gotten along well. And I know Tanya. Didn't really know Dave at all, but anyway, and let me just say this at the outset. This was one of the most fun virtual games I have played in my entire year. I love this game for a lot of reasons. It was just really enjoyable, and when I look back and think about it, I smile. And so I think people are going to enjoy going through this. Even though I wasn't playing, I really wasn't playing to top this board. I was playing to have a dynamic board. And maybe let me mention then my goals that I had for this game. The first goal was to survive and to not let somebody solo. So that was very important.
Hey,
I didn't want
right.
another. And so within that, the next goal was I wanted to keep my position. So while I wanted Conrad, I did want Conrad to make the final board. I didn't want him to top the board because then he would be higher than me, and I wanted to keep my third. And then lastly, and this was maybe more on humanitarian grounds, or we could say the Ed Sullivan goal. I didn't want to lose. I didn't want my play to cause someone to miss the top board. So I didn't want that to happen. I have been in that position going into a final round, and somebody that had no reason at all ruined my chances of, getting some hardware or getting to a top board. So I wanted to try my best to make sure everybody came out of this game with a chance to make the top board. And so, not nearly as cutthroat and probably a little bit more of a peacemaker. Now, unfortunately, that goal did not get realized like I would have liked to, but I did try. I really did try to make that happen.
Well, that's a strong position to be in. I've been in that a few times, which is have fun, don't get killed, and make no enemies. And that's a fine goal. I'm curious about your how the diplomacy went. Conrad is one of my favorite players in the game. He really uh, taught me a lot about how to play diplomacy and how to behave on a diplomacy board. So, how did it go with Conrad? He's obviously a very strong, world-class player.
Yeah, we played in our first Dixie Con game, and of course we conversed a lot outside of the game. He's a patron of the briefing, great guy, great player, and it was all positive stuff. I said to him the same thing I said to everyone: look, I'm not playing the board top. I'm just trying to survive and help. This was my line. I said I want to build good vibes going into the final board. I said that's what I'm trying to do here. I want to build good vibes going into the final board. And so I set up a bounce with him. I moved my army up to Bulgaria. And now John is interesting. So my conversations with John, he was very, very skeptical.
It's hard for Italy and Turkey to get on the same page.
Right.
It happens.
Yes.
And also a player like John, who's always looking to strengthen his position.
Yeah. And I had played him before and done an EG alliance against him when he was France, and then Italy joined in too, and we had killed him by the end of 1904, as I recall. So we never worked together, and so I kind of have a soft spot there too. If I haven't worked with you before and eliminated you in the game before, I kind of I want to balance it out a little bit. So I had a soft spot there. Also, again, like I said, I didn't really want Conrad to top the board. I mean, I wasn't against it, but the thing is, the larger Conrad is, you're going to have to make sure you stop him from getting a solo. So it's not, he's not going to be satisfied with a board top if there's more to grab. At least that was my my thinking.
Right. And Austria, I'm guessing you did not want to work with Austria, given his score from round one, but also, you and he had, ran into some issues since you were playing Italy and he was playing. You were playing England. He was playing Italy.
No, we were. No, we were good. Fine? No, me and him were fine. He didn't have any issues with me, and I didn't have any issues with him. So no, I was fine with that. But it was, Brad was going to have a tough game regardless, because both Russia and Italy were probably not going to work together with him. But Brad's been playing face to face for a long time and is a good player. So no, I said the same thing to him. Look, I'm not trying to ruin anybody's game. Actually, what I said to Brad was this. I said, Brad, I am not playing to top this board. I said, so whatever happens in the East is going to basically, a decision is going to have to be made between you three. And I said, I'm willing to go along with whoever the two are that want to come out. I said, so really your diplomacy and everything, you're not going to have to worry about me. You're going to have to worry about the two beside you, which is going to prove to be the case.
Okay, so let's talk about the opening. And the first thing I want to just ask you about, apart from the diplomacy, is this. I'm starting to do a deep dive into every opening of every player in virtual face-to-face. I think I was surprised to see how popular the opening you've done for Turkey is. I think if you had gone back even 2 years ago, a year ago, 3 years ago, you would see normally Smyrna go to Constantinople or Armenia. Mm-hmm. And the modern meta is so much of an AI that you see that you want to leave Con open for a fleet build. And tell me why you did this opening and what advantage you thought it gave you.
Well, I could have just held in Smyrna because I knew it was going to be a bounce. I think the throwing that army up into Ankara is just a little mischief that I think maybe it's caught on a little bit because Brother Board kind of pushed it in one of his articles. Maybe that's one reason why, that maybe you can sell it to somebody that, you were trying to do an attack, which is baloney, obviously. It's not worth even saying it to competent players. So it's not really worth anything. But I suppose if someone did an NMR, it's a little bit better, if someone doesn't get the orders. But
you'd be surprised at how many NMRs as Turkey exist.
Yeah.
It's pre-1901.
Yeah, my reason on doing this was I wanted all three of them to see that I was not trying to be aggressive. I'm not moving that army up into Khan. I'm not going a different way. I'm keeping myself very, very open. And I think this is in the fall will be another really interesting change up. But let me mention one thing though on the West. So you'll see that army to Wales and going to the English Channel. Now, when I saw that, my first reaction was that this was agreed. It seems
Right.
like they're wanting to convoy the army to Belgium, and make sure of it.
Waterloo, like a modified Waterloo opening, which was a great article of the briefing by George Zhang.
Right. So I thought there was something going on like that, but turns out it wasn't. France went to the English Channel, and I guess Tanya's idea of putting an army into Wales was to discourage going to the English Channel, which did not work. I don't understand that move on a lot of fronts. I guess she thought, well, maybe he's going to move an army up to Picardy, and I'm going to have to do some kind of guessing. I don't completely get it. I guess that must have been her thought, but whatever it was, and do a bounce in London or something, put a fleet in Norway and bounce. That's probably her thought, was probably to do something like that. But yeah, it obviously didn't work, so I found out pretty, and I talked with Andre. Andre was like, he's like, I know you're good with England, so how do I kill England? I think this was after he moved there or something.
What does England not want?
Right. I didn't tell him to move there. At some point we did have a conversation where I was just, we were talking, and I said, if you're talking about on a purely mathematical basis, then, obviously eliminating Tanya gives you a better chance of getting to the final board, which he probably was already thinking of doing. But we were talking a little bit about that, and obviously those two attacking Tanya is good for our side, right? Because Tanya, she's going to put up a better fight than, you presume she's going to put up a better fight than most people.
Yeah, I would have been worried if I was Andre, because Tanya and Dave Roberts of Germany had a very good EF going in the VDL top board. And Dave is a straight alliance player, but so is Andre. So, I mean,
you stab him though?
Yeah, but I don't think he was particularly upset. It was really more of a race than it was a stab.
Right. Well, it's, his decision here obviously is I want to go with an FG, and is what he's forecasting, because there is issues. I didn't think there was at first, but at some point later on in the negotiations, Tanya was pretty big on that. That wasn't agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the fall.
Yeah, and I think probably people looking at this would have been pretty surprised at my moves here. Because, I mean, the question, of course, is why put an army in Khan and not just do that in the spring, right?
Right, yeah. Because I thought the idea would be to have the fleet build in Khan.
Right. Well, so the reasoning behind it was this. I wanted to show both Conrad and John, both of them, that I was not going to be aggressive. So John was going to immediately know I'm not going to send a fleet out because I'm trapping my fleet there in the back, right?
Right.
So it's not going to be getting out, and I'm making that pitch to John.
And Conrad knows you're not going to take the black.
Well, and Conrad knows I'm also not going to let him take the black either. Like, I'm setting up to defensively bounce him for the rest of the game. And I was telling John that. I think I may have told Brad too. I said, look, I'm not going to let Conrad get into the Black Sea. I will bounce him to the end of the game. All right. I'm not trying to win this thing. I'm not trying to play it. I'm trying to feel good vibes going into the finals. So I'm just banging that drum. And so and also, it's letting John feel a little bit better about some things, I think. And that's really the whole point. And so moving that army up there was to give me a reason to never move that fleet out either. And just continue to try to build up that trust with Italy that, hey, I'm not going to be your enemy.
Okay, so two questions here. One is, what is your general view, not only in this game with the convoy of Apulia to Tunis, but in general? I've become more and more opposed to it, frankly.
I don't really like the convoy, but John told me he was doing it. And so what I said was, well, if you're going to do that, then I want you to start thinking about convoying it to Albania the next year. I said, you know, you're going to have some options to really grow. Why don't you convoy it to Albania? And you can get a jump there, and I can help you into Greece. We can do a whole, or Serbia. I said I can do a whole bunch of things to help you there. So we had talked about it because I'd talked about, you know, him taking it with a fleet. But yeah, I don't think it's, you know, sometimes the convoy there, people can think, well, that just like kind of almost necessitates you have to go a certain direction. But, you know, if you're thinking things through, you could do a convoy to Albania, and as Turkey, that's probably something to try to sell Italy as.
And you might have a good case in this instance because number one, you can tell there's no strong AI without a move into Trieste in either the spring or the fall. So clearly
Right.
there's some issues that they're not fully on board with each other.
Mhm.
Second question I have is, what did you make of Vienna taking Galicia? Conrad obviously thought he had something worked out. I find this to be a little perplexing. You're offering support, so into Romania. I assume you told Conrad you'd do that, but he could have walked in,
Right.
not bounce. I'm a tad surprised.
Well, you know, it's not actually a terrible thing either, like from Russia's perspective, because you're going to build Army Warsaw, right?
He's going to build
So,
Army Warsaw.
so in some ways, you're actually giving yourself some tempo to kind of lock things up. So rather than bouncing and then having to build in Moscow and then move down, and you know, at this point too, Conrad kind of knows his north is going to be safe, right? Because of the attack on England, Tanya's not going to be attacking him. So he's already kind of in, I think in his mind, got a battle plan coming together. Okay,
Right.
my north is going to be okay. Let's set up to do some things in the south. So he's making even if they had set up a bounce, it would probably have been better, and he might have tried to set up a DMZ. It definitely would have been better for Austria not to move there, but probably even if he knew that that was going to happen, I would probably say putting an army into Ukraine and then building in Warsaw would have been was the move to do.
Yeah.
Even if you knew he was going to Galatia, because you're setting up a better defense to move by going that direction.
And the other question is this. I've seen this FG work two ways. I'm just curious as to your opinion. Again, this will be broadcast after the finals, so I don't know, you know, what power you'll draw. But Nikolai does a lot of FGs, is what I've noticed. And as Germany, he tends to move Kiel to Denmark, Ruhr to Holland, and lets France take Belgium while he takes the North Sea.
Yeah.
Here, they gave Germany still the two builds, leaving Denmark vacant. What is your thought on this?
Well, yeah, it's definitely not as, because it's not as efficient, right? Because the FG is only getting 3 builds between them rather than 4.
Right.
Yeah, so that's ultimately the issue, and it's going to slow them down, in my opinion, doing it this way. So yeah, they should have put the army up into Denmark just for a simple defensive reason. It's going to slow them down, and you should have just let France. Usually, if France is going to forego a build by moving a fleet into English Channel, the deal is that France then gets Belgium to get a second build. That's the norm, and I'm not sure how if Dave secured this himself or if Andre offered to give him that too to really bring Dave over to his side. I'm not sure.
It's tough to turn this down if you're Germany, even with the tempo. Now, I guess the last question, and I know I'm spending a lot of time on early game here, but it's, you know, I'm happy to talk to you because your tactics are so good. Tony's obviously an accomplished player. I vacillated watching this game between the retreat to Helgoland or Heligoland, or however it's pronounced, as genius or perplexing.
Yeah, I don't really have like a strong opinion either way. I don't really have a super strong opinion either way.
Okay.
I mean, it's going, they're going to, you know, as
there's going to be a
recall,
fleet building Kiel, obviously, you would think.
Yeah, I think she supports back and knocks it out of the North Sea anyway. So I mean, I think it's probably good.
All right. So you build fleet, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good because Denmark's open, and if she thinks she's working with Conrad, that might give her some play. But you know, it's hard to know what she'll do. So all right, so you got this situation going on here, and we'll move into the. I mean, clearly John couldn't have been upset with a fleet. I mean, that's just what you have to build.
Yeah. And it took,
And now your little carrot to John about think about Albania
yeah.
pays off.
Well, and he was worried about Tyrolia. And I said, so a lot of this was, me and him were having a lot of very much tactical discussions. No, okay, move to a pool, you had to do defense then if you're worried about this. And Brad, I think, came around to Conrad's side to do a rat alliance. Now, I don't know what would have necessarily happened long term. I don't have a lot of. I felt better. I felt there was a better chance for my long term survival. After this next turn, I felt there was a better chance for my long term survival going with John rather than Conrad. Conrad's a great player, and maybe he would have let me live, but there started to be some really good stuff starting to happen for Conrad, and that became a little more reason to stick with John. But yes, John is making the moves to work together to do a IT. And I had been negotiating with Brad too, but time ran out, and I don't know if he was just telling me that he couldn't change his orders, or he had never planned to at all. But as you can see, he was planning to support Italy against me, and then kind of do. I think in his mind there was going to be an air alliance going, and they would put pressure on Germany and France while also piecing me out. But
yeah, well, and we'll see how it goes. But as a person who plays Austria an inordinate number of times, this triple move to the line is maybe not the best for Austria, especially when Warsaw could have moved to Silesia, right?
No, it's basically, hey, come in and take my dots.
It doesn't spell,
right.
a game with a board of sharks.
Right.
This is a very dangerous play. You have to have a lot of trust against a player like John. Conrad is a sweet talker, but still.
The issue is this, like, if you give people opportunities, people take opportunities. And, Conrad's a very long-sighted player. And that just is because of his experience. Like he's not going to just take the one dot unless he has an idea where that's going to lead. I don't know if John has the same level of experience. But it's a dangerous thing to allow open, to appear weak like that. And he's about to get just completely stacked in the fall.
Yeah, now, there's a lot of issues here. So now clearly you have to work with John, but I'm guessing from the tone, and I don't remember, but you do. You've got to be trying to offer John grease because you can guarantee it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and we're talking, and Conrad pops in, or maybe what happens is me and John worked out some ideas, and then he starts talking to Conrad, and he invites me over, and so Conrad has an idea to where basically I support both of them into centers and get nothing, which is fine with me. I'm not playing to board top. I don't mind helping get them positioned. So Conrad's thing is, let's take Greece and Serbia. And so, yeah, I mean, like he drops down to 2 centers in fall 1902 after being at 5. And yeah, I mean, and I'm at this point, I'm actually pushing there to be an IR alliance. I am. Like, I want them to work together. And what kind of disillusions me to that is that Conrad's going to back off on wanting to split Austria up. There was going to be an idea, and we'll talk some about it next turn, but it's going to become pretty clear to me that Conrad does not want to work with Italy long term, unless probably there's an agreement to split me up. So
it's a little bold by John here to have Venice be the mover.
Right.
I mean,
yeah,
it pays off in spades, right? But
right.
For me, I think I would have been a little nervous.
Yeah. No, it was and it was a good risk too at the end of the day. But because now he's in position to just keep rolling, right? Because he's got all these units, he's getting 2 builds, and we hadn't negotiated the build either, which was kind of an oversight on my part.
Well, he has to build an army Venice, and I guess he's
right.
going to build a fleet Naples. Like, I don't know what other choice he has.
Well, that's what you would think, But he ends up building 2 armies, which was phenomenal.
Better.
Like at that point, I was like, okay, we have an IT. We have an IT, and I'm going to be able to roll with this. That commitment there, this next, really helped solidify things. Now, the other thing too was during this next year, I'm trying to figure out, how we're going to continue to grow. And so the pitch to Conrad was, okay, you support Serbia up into Budapest. John's going to get Serbia, and you can get Vienna too. So you both grow. And he was not going to do that. He was like, I'm just going to support Austria. So he was, I guess, somewhat nervous with taking Austria out of the equation, or maybe it was under humanitarian grounds. I don't know. No, it wasn't going to last for that long, though, if that was the case.
But I think this is the mark of a good player, right? Which is, I think a middling player a lot of times would just lie. But Conrad at least is going to maintain diplomatic credibility by telling you this.
Right.
And when people don't lie to me and say they're just not going to able to help me, I seem to have a greater appreciation that maybe one day later I could work with them. Sure. I like that Conrad said that.
Sure. Yeah. And, I'm going to do my best as the game goes on. And really that was my desire to try to keep him in the game. But some ways too, shutting down any work there in the East was probably not, I don't know if it was really the greatest strategy or not, because it's pretty obvious that Italy has built armies. He wants to attack the Balkans. He's not going to attack me. So trying to do some kind of a stalemate on the position, I don't know if that was really the best diplomatic decision. There was probably a better way to do it. And I think, in my opinion, probably letting John get Serbia and getting yourself another build, he probably would have had a better ability to help push John to attack me.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think him just shutting down John's growth in this way, especially when he had already built those armies, made it so that they were going to fight. There was just no other thing he could do. And so he needed to get some more builds to build that fleet to attack. And so I think that was probably a mistake on Conrad's part. It doesn't necessarily mean he would have topped the board, but you would have given himself a better chance of working with John against me or something like that.
It's probably an understandable reaction to the Army Rome, if I'm counting.
Right. But that's something you're good at, right? Like when you have something that looks threatening to you, you're really good at saying, hey, let me in on it. I want to be a part of this.
Right.
And you ingratiate yourself to the threat and become a part of the threat rather than responding as the counter to the threat.
Correct. That's what it's always an opportunity to discuss. I mean, because Conrad here does not have to win.
Right.
And so, I would not want to make myself a focus of Italy.
Right.
So, and if I could have gotten one more center out of it, I would have built an army and essentially made myself unattackable by Italy and make the natural option be you.
Yeah. Or you and Italy push, with England's help, and you say, okay, Italy, we'll let you board top, and you let me be second, and there's different ways to go about it. So I'm not sure what ultimate the play was. I mean, like right now, like especially even on the DBNI board, or the broadcasters, I mean, like they're looking at Conrad thinking, man, what a position and all this, but it's not quite as strong as it looks.
Well, I think the assumption is that he's going to continue against Austria, and I think if that was the case, his position, is good
for sure. Yeah.
So, and also, I mean, not to give too much away to the listeners of the podcast, but he obviously was concerned about Tanya going down, and he dedicated a lot of resources to helping England.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he doesn't want that to resolve, which is great. Perfect. So we were still kind of doing these negotiations. So it wasn't really, the spring had John and I hadn't quite work out exactly how to go about this. And whatever it was, is after this, it became very clear, okay, if we're going to advance your cause in the Balkans, we've got to collapse John in the Black Sea. And so
Collapse Conrad, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Do collapse Conrad. So I go ahead and I make my move in the fall. And after the moves go through, I don't remember exactly if Conrad just did a gasp or if he was like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was very obvious that what's going to happen is the pressure is now coming in the South. And that's why I think it was ultimately a mistake to not let John continue to grow, because in my opinion,
I actually saw this and I thought to myself, because I'm seeing all these support orders and all the rest, and I see what you're doing, and I'm like, man, because John, I'm not calling John an opportunist, but I know John is always going to maximize his advantage, and I'm like, I mean, I hope, now you got an army in Smyrna. I mean, he can essentially probably take Aegean, take East. I mean, like you're really opening yourself up, but you're showing trust, which is something I like to do.
Yeah. And there's another point to this too. Like the whole time I'm selling John, like, look, man, I don't have to board top this thing. I can help you. You will not be able to board top if you attack me. Conrad will be the one that wins this exchange. So I said, so my whole thing I'm preaching to him is patience. That's the hardest thing with some diplomacy players, is to be willing to sit for a little bit for a year.
Especially one that has to board top.
Right. So I'm preaching patience. Look, man, just, keep the faith, hold this out. And so that's what I'm preaching, and telling him about.
Yeah. I was a little surprised that Bulgaria didn't. Well, I guess it wouldn't have mattered. Okay, there's no way to take Serbia.
Right.
But if there is no way to take Serbia, why offer the support? I guess because the jig was up with you moving to Conrad.
Right. Yeah, you never know what somebody's going to try to do. So, maybe he attacks Bud, from the other side. Who knows? But it really was a matter of, that's what we ordered. We had said, I doubt it's going to go through, but you got to set up. I tried to be a little cute here. I thought, maybe he'll move Sev to arm to bounce Smyrna in the spring move. But no, he didn't. That would have been awesome if that guess had been right. I should have just supported Onken and been ready to go in the spring, but I thought he was going to kind of try to tactically do some things.
I was very surprised to see your move here, supported move to Armenia as opposed to taking the black.
Yeah. Well, I really thought that he would try to do Sev to Armenia because his thought process would be, well, I can't stop the Black Sea, right?
Right.
So I might as well stop one. So I was trying to be a little cute and outguess what. I mean, I knew either way it was going to be two moves unless I guessed right, and I just didn't think he would do that. But he did. I talked with him after that turn, and he's like, "Oh no, you always got to do the Black Sea." And I was like, well, I said that's why you're such a great player, And I'm complimenting him because he is a great player.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And he moves back to Galicia now. I mean, all right. So, but he's got big problems.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing. Everything is in trouble because as we get everything into position, things are going to start dropping. It drops faster than I would have thought, honestly. But the fall move is another one. Of course, England's starting to face incredible pressure. There's actually a funny story from this. If you back up to spring 1902, let me talk about a conversation I had with Andre for our listeners. So in spring 1902, Andre and I are having a discussion. He said, "What should we do, right, with this attack?" And I said, I would convoy Belgium to London. And I said, the reason is, I said, people always like to move. They don't like to hold. So I said, I would go for that. I said, I think it'll probably get through. It's very difficult for people to hold. And whatever it was, he told me later Dave wouldn't agree to it. So they decided, and the problem is, this obviously is a setback, right? You want to get an army on there. So you can jump it back up, but they would have already had an army on there and been really booking if they would have done that. And I was fine with Andre board topping. I like Andre, I wasn't against him. But Andre had another game. So, preference wise, I would have probably preferred John. So yeah, so then, now we're getting into Black Sea. And, next year is going to be the year when, we start making some games.
Right. And actually, you probably don't care about him moving to Ukraine because your goal is really not to board top, is to have a strong survival. And you don't care if Conrad gets eliminated. And
no, I do care. I don't want him to get eliminated because
you don't want to get him. This only helps John, right? And that's not to be, you wouldn't be opposed to that.
No, I'm fine with that. So when things are making, oh, hey, John's going to be the one that comes out, I'm okay with that. I mean, I don't mind John board topping. I am playing the nicest turkey possible. So yeah, this whole turn worked out really, really well. We support in, he gets he goes to Trieste, and we'd already worked through everything that we knew he was going to get a build no matter what, regardless with what Austria did. So, so yeah, everything's perfect. But then in the fall, I get Sev too, which I was not expecting. And John takes another unit back. I don't know what was going on, but it works out even, better for John. I should say we knew that Conrad was going to be losing a build, and he might get one, or it might be even.
Did you get John to move the fleet to Tyrrhenian Sea, or was that negotiated, or did he just do it?
I think it was negotiated.
I assume I don't remember, but you're probably in this spirit of trust going to build an army. You do.
Yeah, and we're so as far as a build, yeah. So I get my build, and of course I'm building armies. I'm not going to build any fleets because I need to I'm trying to show to John, look, I'm trying to help. But Conrad's now, of course, in a more desperate position. He really does need to make an agreement with me and John, though I don't think he comes around to it just yet. It may be another turn or so.
Okay.
But about this time too, I started telling John, I said, if you're going to top this board, it's going to be because of your relationship with Germany. Like that's going to be the relationship. You've got to build a relationship with Germany if you're going to beat France in this position. And I don't know exactly when he started working on developing it, but it was either this turn or the turn after, where he starts trying to talk more and more with Germany to start talking mid-game ideas. And I'm encouraging him, look, we don't need to spend a lot of time talking with me, talk with him.
Right. Meanwhile, did you know that Greece was moving to Bulgaria? You invited that? Obviously, you could have bounced.
Okay, no. So what happened was, in our discussions, I had said that Greece could backfill at some point, and take Bulgaria if needed. Like in my mind, that's what I'd said. Well, in his mind, I had said you could do it right now, and I had not done that. Now I don't think John was lying to me about that.
No, I don't think so either.
I think he heard it, and who knows how I stated it, but I was not giving him Bulgaria in that moment. But I almost did con to Bulgaria too, but just to do that way. But anyway, yeah, he goes in, and so when we talk, I was like, we had a frank discussion, and he said, okay, I'll move out, and I said, no, I said, you can keep it, it's all right. I'm not getting a build, but look, before you move into anything, you need to be like, cross every T and dot every I and make sure that we're on the same page on that. I said, I'm okay with you getting centers, but make sure that it's, right. And we had discussed about him moving on France, and I've been encouraging that. Look, you got to start putting pressure, on that if you want to board top.
Right. I mean, at this point, John is doing well. He can guarantee Marseille. He just picked up a build through you. You're going to stay flat.
Yep.
If John describes himself as a balance of power player, and I'm not sure he is the self-described balance of power player, but this is a great turn for John.
Right. Yeah. He's moving along, getting position, and I think if you want to go ahead and advance it to the fall, I think this is the moment. No, not yet. It's coming.
Okay.
and obviously Conrad's facing more and more pressure, right? He's not going to be able, he's losing another center. Tanya retreats into St. Petersburg. It's her final enclave.
Right.
So he's down to 3, right? Or I guess no, he's still at 4 because of Sweden. But
Right.
I mean, everything's precarious, right? He's nothing is for sure. But I'm telling Conrad this whole time. I told him, I said, look, I am not going to advance past the South. I don't want Moscow. I don't want Warsaw. I said, those can be yours forever. I'm not trying to get you out. I've been in your shoes. And Conrad's very doubtful of me. Oh yeah, I'm having a hard time believing that. And I told him, look, well, you'll be able to believe it when the game's over, because I'm done. And that's why I told all of them. I told John that. I said, I'm done growing. I don't need to grow anymore. I'm happy where I'm at.
And you prove it if we, look through the series of moves. Meanwhile, John just advances. Although the setback in Marseille is probably worth the trade-off to get Spain.
Yeah, Ukraine's interesting, and that was more because Conrad refused to make a deal about Austria. So he would not make a deal about Austria, and John said, you know what, just try to take Ukraine, which I could have done the turn before. And so I went ahead and went for it. But the whole point was to hit Galicia so that John could take Budapest or something like that. So that was really the whole point of hitting Ukraine. It wasn't to take anything from Conrad in the north. And it's at this moment where Conrad he orchestrates the second deal with taking out Austria's centers. Conrad was the mastermind behind all of Austria dying. He was the first, which is interesting because also at this time, I was talking with Brad, I think for the few seasons before, and I was offering to support him into Romania before I took it. I said, hey, let's get you a little bit back in the game. And I told him, I said, I'll support you to the end of the game. I don't need Romania. I said, but we need to get those 2 for John. And he was like, no, why would I do that? Conrad's not done anything against me. And I said, Brad, I said, he took Serbia from you. And he goes, oh, yeah. I go, and he was the one who came up with the idea. And so then he was kind of like, well, I'll think about it. And he unfortunately was thinking about it for too long, because then Conrad finally made the decision. Okay, fine, let's split them up and I'll get a center. So, we do all the supports and Brad's out.
And you're in a great spot for your goals of the game. Now you're in a G, and you're really, for the most part, unstoppable.
Yeah.
And Conrad moving.
And if I want to stab John, I can take 3 centers from him easy. So,
right.
So that's one of the key things here. Like, there were moments when I could have, put that knife into John and just been like, okay, buddy, your chances are over. But like I said, I wanted to build good vibes going in, not just for the people watching the game. I wanted to build some good vibes off that also, that, I'm not just trying to hurt people to hurt people.
We'll go to the spring 1908.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And at this point, how can you not take Moscow?
Well, this was actually agreed. Conrad wanted me to go into Moscow because he's under attack from Germany. He knows he needs more units to help. So we all 3 actually are negotiating all of this. All 3 of us are negotiating, how we're going to go about blocking Germany from getting in. And so actually this was agreed by Conrad. He wanted me to go to Moscow. I didn't even come up with that idea. He said, we were bouncing all kinds of ideas, and he's like, yeah, you need to go to Moscow.
That's fantastic. And then let's see how the fall goes. Get him back into Warsaw. This
was John's being very
greedy.
Well, the truth is, like, he's making the move he should make. On my end, like, I don't really care, right? I want Conrad to stay in. And John's whole thing is, I got to keep grabbing centers and grabbing centers and grabbing centers.
Because he's not going to get anything in the West anymore.
Yeah, not without Germany. And that's another thing too. Like, I start really pushing Germany, like, look, man, you're going to be the one that makes the decision. And I even asked him, I said, look, if I give John a center, what are you going to do? Are you going to give Andre centers? I said, are we going to do this back and forth or what? I'm trying to figure out how Dave wants the game to resolve. And either Dave definitely wouldn't say, I don't know if he didn't have an idea or if he didn't want to tell me what his idea for how it was to resolve, but he was very much like, I don't like this, I don't like, these decisions being made based on points and things like that, which, I get it, but hey, it's the DBNI Invitational. So it's all about the points. That's the tournament.
You build another army. John's builds are predictable, and we move into the spring.
Yeah, Conrad was not happy, and Conrad said, and I sent Conrad a message immediately after John took that center. I said, look, I did not know that. I did have an inkling that it was coming, but I had tried to persuade John not to do it, but John was like, look, John made a good argument. He said, why would I not take it when we don't need him there? I can just put my unit in there and then I have it. And that's a pretty good argument to make, It's a pretty good argument.
He wants you into Galicia, not himself.
Well, that was more me. I wanted to solidify some things. And I had been moving my fleets out, but my idea with moving my fleets out was I wanted to put it behind him to help him. And also, and of course, he doesn't really want that because that's just another pressure. And he's like, I don't need your help there. Just keep it away. So, the last turn I was like, I'm pushing it out there whether he wants to or not. And, but, then he asked me, and so I moved it back. Again, there's multiple falls in there where I could have just got it. Now, at this point, John is starting to talk about eliminating Conrad. And my thing this whole game had been, I do not want to eliminate Conrad. I do not want to eliminate his chances from getting on the top board. And I'm even trying to stall him some. I'm saying, look, okay, if you need to eliminate Conrad at the board top, then let's do it. But we don't. Now, I have no plan to help with that. But trying to buy Conrad more time. And so when he makes the debate, it was very clear to me it was going to be. And, I wasn't real happy about that. I even said to him that, I said, look, I've helped you in all these different ways. I've given you centers. Don't kill Conrad. And I give him Romania too. Now, the reason I give him Romania is because with how it's all working out, I need to give John one more center to force Dave to make a decision on what to do. If he doesn't give Andre his centers or start giving him centers, then John will be the board top. So I'm kind of forcing Dave to make a decision here by growing John a little more. Just so everybody understands here, I have now given him Bulgaria and Romania, right? And I've done everything I could. I have been as loyal an ally to John as possible. I've been a servant to his, and also working the board to try to help him. And it's actually this next year. It's this next year when he starts talking more about eliminating Conrad, and I talk about pushing in my chips. So when he makes this move, I make that whole statement about it. Look, we work so well together. This is what I'm asking. I do not want Conrad eliminated. Do not eliminate him. And then he starts talking to Germany, and I can't get the guy away from him. They're talking and talking and talking. I'm chatting him. Look, we really need to. And I'm just kind of hanging out with Conrad and Tanya. And I was like, you know what? And I'm apologizing to Conrad. I go, I know what he's going to be trying to do. And so I just decided, I go, you know what? I know what he's about to do. I said, I'm not going to let this happen. And so I put in my order.
Russ, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so you put in your orders. We didn't get anything after you said it, so I put in my order.
Yeah, so I'm looking at all of this, and I know that I'm not happy that he's going to move to eliminate Conrad, because I knew all he needed was a survival to make it in, and I wanted Conrad on the final board. He's a great player, and I enjoy playing with him. And so at the same time, with all his talk with Germany, I can't even get a hold of the guy, He can't get back with me. Time's counting down. And so I just say, you know what? I'm not going to play this game. I'm going to take back Bulgaria and Romania. And there is nothing so sweet in diplomacy as sniffing out a betrayal and punishing it. It is, at least for me, it's one of the most satisfying moments when someone tries to stab you and instead you get them. And so,
Yes.
yeah, it was nice. It was so good. And you know, that's one of the great things about, you know, the virtual scene or face to face is when orders get read. And the neat thing about virtual is everybody sees all the orders at once, right? They're not read one at a time. They see them all at once. The board's there, and then you get to hear the whoa, you know, or something like that. And John came, so you know, John's like, hey, I need to talk with you, and he's like, you know, I just wanted to go for it. I had to try, and I said, you know, I know.
I don't know if he had to try, because at 11 centers, he had still made it the West. That's probably, it would have been mathematically enough as it ends up, but everybody knew 110 was the number.
And I was going to support him into Warsaw too. You know, after Germany took it, I was going to do that. But here's the thing, John, you know, like I'm watching you talk all with Germany. You won't come to me anymore. And it just, I told him, I said, it became pretty apparent, you know, what was happening here. I was getting ditched, you know, so the thing was, you know, I found the second phone, right? You know, I found those extra little notes that were being sent, and I said, you know what? Before this relationship, I get stabbed. You know, we're gonna get some comeuppance. And at this point, there's no way that he's going to top the board with any amount of time. I think he could have still had a good chance to top the board if he would not have stabbed me. If he would have just like kept some kind of deals, but it just wasn't going to work. And so
he could have been at 12 centers. 11 would have been enough. It's hard to know for sure, so I get John's instinct here, but I just want the listeners to know, right? Because one thing that Umble always talks about is having options, and you never lost your options in this game.
Right. Yep. Well, and the other thing too, though, is it wasn't really even that great of a stab because me and him had not worked out our moves at all. And so him supporting Bud to Galacia, if I hadn't stabbed him, I would have just disbanded that and rebuilt in Smyrna, right?
Right.
So whatever I was going to actually lose, you know, Germany and France would have been the real people that gained from it, I think.
As it is, you're impenetrable right now with the two fleets.
Yeah, basically. I mean, there's not really anything to do. And I told John, I said, look, John, if you can get Germany, because, you know, I think his thought was if I give Germany Warsaw and Germany takes Belgium, because that wasn't agreed on, you know, he'll have some more units to fight. But it obviously wasn't planned out real well because, you know, Germany only had one place to build. Does he have, how many units does he have? Oh, I guess he has 7. There's just no real way for Germany to prosecute it. And that's why I was telling him with Conrad, I go, look, John, I go, it's been a good game. I said, but sometimes you just, you know, you don't win. You know, you try your best, it's not there. And I said, you don't have to eliminate Conrad to go for that. It's just what happened. It's how the game that's happened. So, but I'm telling him, I'm like, look, if you have a chance to win, I'll give you Romania and Bulgaria back. But I said, if you really start attacking me, I go, I'm not going to give you anything. And
instead, he gives the opening to France.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I'm not completely.
It kind of plays out from here a bit. There's nothing he can get off of you. France makes the move.
Yeah. Once he takes Belgium and lines everything up, there's no real way for him to come back. So the game basically, you know, that's where it ends. I think I don't know if they do any spring moves or not, but it's done.
Right here.
Yeah.
And you get your goal. You are 70, roughly. I don't think quite 70, but you're
50 points.
50 points. You're not giving anything away. You've made the top 7. You are the 3rd seed with the board top and a 3rd place, and you are in a good spot.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I can tell you, I'm certainly rooting for you. You and Andre, well, everybody really I know and like, but I'm a big fan of yours, obviously. I really like Andre. There are good players on the top board. And I think it's going to be a great game. I look forward to watching it. And I'm cluing in our listeners that maybe I did not make it, but that's okay. I'm not a caliber of Umble's league yet, but I'm trying.
Well, apparently some people think you are, though, because you had a lot of support that you were going to make it.
Yes, I was selected by Brian Pravel and Zach Moore to make the top 7. And in fact, Zach had me as his number 2 seed, which you never actually do well in diplomacy betting on me. So I'm, they got what they deserved by putting their support into me. But look, this is a fantastic game. I really appreciated you walking us and our listeners through it. Congratulations to all the players. Congratulations to Andre for a very nice board top where you really didn't have to do anything to anybody other than Tanya.
Right.
You essentially got Tanya centers in Scandinavia. And that's a fine place to be. And it put Andre in a good position in game 2, which I played with Andre. So thanks, Umble, for the game. And thanks to diplomacybriefing.com for sponsoring us. And you have a good day.
All right. Thank you.